job. That's my job, is to help you to determine the value of properties. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me back at the top? Okay, great. So I have lots of people that, you don't need to just do business with me if you want me to pull a comp for you. I'd be more than happy to do a CMA for you at any time. My number will be here at the end. I've got cards. I'd be more than happy to do comparative market analysis for you on properties that you're going to then turn around and resell. Now, I have lots of people that call me and they want me to do a comparative market analysis on their property that they're just going to buy to rent. Now, that's not the value that you want on a rental property. So, there's two different ways that you're going to look at valuing property. One is if you're going to turn around and resell it, and the other is if you're going to buy and hold it, and they're completely different. So you don't want to get one confused with the other. Okay, let's go on into for resale. Now, this depends upon where we are in the market, the fluctuating, fluid market of values. Sometimes market value is the price where you want to be, and sometimes if you're a buyer, you have to be above that, and that's the sales price. That's the value that it's going for. And we always we try to have appraisers that keep us having some sort of a level head. Let's go through those a little bit. So for sales price, right now, the value of property is whatever somebody is going to pay you for it. That's the value of property right today in April, is whatever anybody is going to pay you for it. We're going out and looking at properties that have come on the market yesterday, and they've already got 5 offers on them, and it's the highest and best is going to get that property. And then it's up to the appraiser to try and make people be reasonable. But that's the sales price right now. Sales price is just that. You can almost count for your lower, your properties that are under 200,000, maybe up to 250,000, that you're going to need to pay if you are buying as an end buyer, not you as investors, but if you're buying as an end buyer and if you're then going to be selling to someone, they're almost going to always pay 10 to 20,000 above market value right now. So we'll make sure that you price it right. How can you price it right? You're then going to walk the active properties. So I would go to the active properties that are around, see what they're listed at, see how yours compares to theirs, and then price it appropriately. You're going to find that it's going to be above market value. Okay, market value then is where they take 3 comparables, and they need to be in the same location, sold within the last 3 to 4 months, and then they're going to compare them in price. And we'll look at that in just a minute, of exactly how a real estate agent can do a comparable for you so that you understand that comparable. If you're going to do it yourself, maybe you want to have the real estate agent send you all of the comparables in a certain area, and then you pick out your own comps and have them run a comparable. If you feel like you want to do that, you certainly can do that as well. So, and one of those things is once they've picked out those comps, you want to make sure that you kind of drive by, and they're going to be solds, and so you want to drive by and take a look at them. Okay, so the appraised value. The appraised value, of course, you have an appraiser who is going to make sure that the bank is getting a value for their dollar. So the appraiser is going to go out and see if they could possibly try to meet the sales price, the price on the contract. If they can make that price on the contract, they really try the best they can. Now you need to understand appraisers. Their duty is to make sure that the bank is getting the value for their dollar. They are hired by the banks, they are hired by the sellers, and not the seller of the property, but the people that are doing the loans. And it's important for them to keep their job. They get paid half as much as they used to get paid, and they have to do twice as much work to make a living. So appraisers have a very difficult job. They are going to do the very best they can. They're not going to try to ruin your deal. They're not going to try to make a name for themselves by having, low values. There are all these things to bash appraisers. Appraisers are doing the very best that they can. So, what are you going to try to do to try and help appraisers? I'll get to that in just a second. You need to try and help your appraiser come up with the value that you want them to come up with. They're not going to be able to spend as much time as they used to be able to spend because they used to get a lot more money. So they have to spend less time and do more volume in order to make a living. So help them to come up with the appraisal that you want them to come up with if you are the seller. You are the seller, you want to then meet the appraiser because he's going to call to get an appointment to get into the property anyway. So meet the appraiser there. Come up with at least 3 things that you're going to hand to the appraiser. You're going to hand to the appraiser some good comps that then talk about the value that you want it to come in at. You're then going to come up with all of the improvements that you've just done and the money that you just put into it. So that's very important that you then show all of the improvements that you've done. And then if you've gotten multiple offers, give him the first page of all of those multiple offers so that he can then see that the sales price is going to maybe affect his appraisal value. So you need to help that appraiser come up with your value. Okay, now, then if you absolutely cannot get the appraisal to come up, you don't want to come down in your profit, then just let that buyer go by the wayside because the next buyer, their lender, may have an appraiser that will give you a better value. So, you don't have to go with that particular buyer, that you can just let that buyer go by the wayside and then pick up the next buyer because properties are still going up in value. Appraisals will still keep going.
Dusty, does that pertain when we're talking about FHA? Because I've been hamstrung before when I have an FHA appraisal come in low and it hangs around and the next guy comes in and they go right back to that first appraisal. And I've had problems, not with this market, because clearly we're in a different phase now than we were like last year even. Have you seen that still be the case with FHA appraisals?
Well, they do an appraisal, and I'm not an appraiser, so maybe an appraiser could help me out with this. But they assign a case number to it. If they have done the appraisal, I don't know if they have assigned a case number to it unless it's actually gone through the process. But they do assign a case number to it. I've had a couple of them that were FHA loans that we just let go by the wayside, and the next appraiser coming in did a better job. So that worked for me. What was your question?
In this changing market, increasing rate of social inventory and more pressure to move them up, I see that as a real challenge because you're trying to be reasonable in what you're doing, but there's a gap. I see a conflict with the appraisals being a day rate $1 short, kind of behind the curve. And of course, the things you just mentioned are excellent ideas, but specifically, what can you do to further enhance your odds? Maybe you'll get to that.
Yeah, if you'll just do that, if you'll just hand to the appraiser the comps that you've come up with that justify your value, you got to find them first. So they've got to be there. So you've got to find some comps. If you can't, you need to maybe broaden your spectrum. If you've got a tri-level home, look at your your 2-story homes as well. If you've got a rambler, look at your bungalows. Maybe they're somewhat the same. If you still can't find it, then just find some comp, no matter what it looks like. If you need to widen the range of the dates that it was built, widen those ranges a little bit. They may not be able to use it, but you're going to try to do the very best that you can to come up with some comps that will justify your value. That's what they've got to live by. They can't do something unless they can prove the comp.
So I've heard that the maximum radius that a tree can go is like a mile. Is that true?
Yes. We're trying to, that's what they need to say by it.
Repeat the question.
I'm sorry, the question was, appraisers need to stay within a mile radius, if at all possible, unless it's a very high square footage. If it's high square footage, they can go out further, or if other things about it that there are not going to be a lot of comps in the area. But usually they try and stay within. Okay, one more question, we've got to move on.
MLS market snapshots, how do they have any accuracy to them? I use the MLS market snapshot that I get through real estate brokers that I work with.
You know, I'm not real familiar with those,
Oh, okay.
so come and talk to me about them afterwards, and we'll talk about those snapshots.
How about Zillow?
Don't use Zillow. Don't go there. We'll talk about this afterwards, okay? One more question, and we really do have to go on. Yeah. Yes?
Last year, nothing sold since last year. Last year, we did foreclosures. Yeah, the houses are expecting to be, they're worth like $100,000 more than because they're big. So anyway, how does the appraiser justify that or not? Because they will.
They'll just need to find some comps in the area, maybe not in your same complex. Right, and it's a little difficult, and we're glad that we don't have to do what they do. But give them some comps, justify it with what you've put into, what money you've put into it, and what improvements you've made, and then just make sure that it works real well for them. You know, if you've got multiple offers, make sure that they see that. We need to move on. Can you remember it?
County tax. Yes, is that in the ballpark, or are they pretty conservative?
You know, they're conservative. I wouldn't use that as a value either. That's not necessarily value. That's very conservative for that. Okay.
It's hit and miss in different areas.
Right. Okay, CMA. I just picked out a property that I did a CMA on not too long ago. And next one. These are some comps that I pulled. Just go to the next one, next one, next one. Okay, this is the top of the form that is going to be the form in your comparative market analysis that you get from your realtor that you'll need to know how to read. So I want to go through that with you just so that you know how to read it. First of all, it's got the first column that's got blue is your subject property. This is the property that you're trying to find the value for. The next three columns are the comparables that the real estate agent has pulled out for you. You can then go down and see what the list price was. You can then see what the sold price was. Then you can see the days on market. You can see they're really short. One was 7 days, another one was 3 days, another one was 9 days. It was not on the market. They were not on the market for very long. Good. Okay, now the sold date. So you can see that they were sold not too long ago. Then the next thing is the features about the home that you need to change the sold price to make the comparable just like the subject property. So the subject property has 5 bedrooms. You then want to either raise or lower the sales price of the first comparable to make sure that it is like, you make that comparable just like the subject property. So in this case, the MLS has decided that a value for a bedroom is $1,000. That's just for comparison basis. That does not mean that that's what the value is if you're going to complete a bedroom. But they're saying it's $1,000. So the first comparable only has 3 bedrooms. To make that comparable just like the subject property, they add $2,000 to the sold price of that particular comparable. And then the next comparable has 5 bedrooms, so you don't add anything. The next comparable has 4 bedrooms, so you add $1,000 to the sold price. Are you understanding how this is working? Okay, then for bathrooms, I think you can see they've done the same thing. The full bathrooms, the subject property has 1. Go over to the second comparable and you see that that has 2 full bathrooms. Well, we need to make that comparable just like the first comparable, so in order to do that, we need to take away $5,000, which is the amount that they have said a bathroom is worth, a full bathroom. We need to take that away from the sold price in order to make the second comparable just like the subject property. Are you understanding how that works? Okay, all right, let's go down to the next page. Now we skipped a couple columns of square feet, but now we're into square feet in the basement, and they've just said that the value for that is about $10 a square foot. So you're either going to add or subtract money from the sold price to make the comparable, just like the subject property. Goes down to total, goes down to year built, and then garage capacity, then to acres, and then to concessions. That concessions line is what the seller paid for closing costs, usually closing costs, for the other buyer. So that money has to be taken away from the sold price so that you're not including the concessions into that sales price. So once you have done all of that, then the price at the bottom is the comparable price to your subject property. You add those three, divide by 3, and then you come up with that value. So if you wondered how they come up with that value, that's how they do that. On to the next one. This is again just something that compares plus or minus to listing price. Go on to the next one. You'll have a map there that shows you very visually exactly where the comparables are. You'll find that in an appraisal as well. This is an important one for you who are selling this property. If you are buying a property from somebody who is wholesaling it to you, you bought it in a trust, then you probably don't have a lot of closing costs when you buy it. But if you're not, if you're just buying your property and then you're selling your property, you're going to have 2 closing costs. So be real careful about your closing costs and what you need to take away from your projected sales price so that you don't lose a lot of money. Make sure that you take away how much you owe on the property, where you're getting your money, your title insurance, your commissions, to sell the property, your home warranty, your property taxes, your settlement fees. Make sure you take those all out of there so that you can come up with what your profit is. So all of those things are very important. The real estate agent isn't going to know where you're getting your money and what the cost of your money is. They can maybe fill in a couple of the others for you, but make sure that you do that. Okay, on to the next one. Now let's talk about rental property, and we're going to need to go through this fairly quickly here. But rental property is very important. You are not going to have a comparative market analysis done on your rental property. They don't care about what some other duplex sold for, because that other duplex may have completely different features, and you don't care about the comparable price. You care about how much money you're going to make off of this property. And there's a lot of different ways that you can figure how much money you're going to make. So first of all, a lot of people, you don't even know where to start with a rental property. You have no clue where to start. Where you want to start is you want to find a rental property where the monthly rent is 1% of what you can pay for the property, what you can get it under contract for. That doesn't mean the asking price, because we don't pay an asking price necessarily. So if you find a property that you can get for the rent is 1% of the price that you can pay for the property, that's where you want to start. Now, you're going to need to put in a lot of offers, so you don't necessarily need to go look at it, but you certainly need to make sure that it's not going to be in an area where the only renters that you can attract are going to be renters that trash your property. That's probably not where you want to get a rental. But then other people have different philosophies and they go to those areas. But just know, that I wouldn't suggest that for if you're just starting out. So start there, put in an offer, and see if you get the property. Once you've got it under contract, then you can start doing all these other things. If it's 4 units or less, everybody always asks me, what contract do I use? I would suggest that with a rental property that you use the contracts that the real estate board has. They're very good contracts. For 4 units or less, use the real estate residential contract. For 5 units or more, use the commercial contract, because you're going to find that it will help you in getting the things that you need to get. Okay, what you're going to ask for. On this contract that you are making out, don't forget, don't do this later. On the contract, make sure that you ask for the Schedule E. That's the part of the tax return that talks about income and expenses, especially expenses. You want to know exactly what they've claimed for expenses. Okay, then you're going to ask for copies of the leases and the deposits that belong to the renters that you're going to get at closing. And then you're going to ask for the contact information for those renters. Then you're also going to ask for the month-to-month income by unit. You want to know if they've been vacant for the year. It's great if you can get it for 2 years. So you want to know if it's been vacant at any time. You want to know if they've paid late. You want to know this information up front so that you can do some figures. Okay, now the next thing that you'll want to do is take down these two websites. Finestexpert.com. I use this all the time. I find it to be very reliable. Don't use Zillow, but use Finest Expert. I really like this particular site. On to the next one. I will go back to that slide in just a minute, but on to the next one. This is the bottom of the page. If you go to that Finest Expert, we'll go back to that in just a second. If you go to the bottom of the page after you put in your property address, you're going to find here, down at the bottom, the rents that have been done in that area just lately. You can also find this in KSL.com, but these are rents that I find very, very valuable, and I think that they're very truthful. So in this particular property, you see that there is a range from $1,050 to $1,710 in rents for these are single family homes. These are not necessarily duplexes, so you'll need to do some adjustments if you've got some duplexes, but these are for single family homes in that area, depending upon whether these are 5 bedrooms, and it's very good at coming up with this information. You need that information. You have to know what you can rent a unit for. Now go back again one more. Okay, so then you can also go to KSL.com and look for a property that's like yours. Make sure you verify these rents. You do not want to go into a property and not know exactly what you can get for each unit. Now, go back, and then you can also go to goodmortgage.com and calculators. That's another place that you can go to plug in this information. Okay, go back to the next slide. There you go. Now, plug in your information. All the information that you just gathered. If you get that under contract and then they've come back and they've given you all that information, all you need to do is plug it in right here. Plug it in and it's going to give you your cash flow and it's going to give you your cash on cash. That's important. Let me talk to you about what that means. But you don't have to know any formulas. You don't have to figure anything. You put the stuff in. This is free. Those two websites that I give you are completely, totally free. You don't have to pay anything for them. Just plug it in and you're going to get that information out. What is the cash flow? Cash flow is the amount of money that you're going to get in your pocket after everything's paid. So it takes out, it minuses the vacancy, it minuses the expenses, it minuses the debt service. And of course, it doesn't have anything to do with remodeling costs. But that's the cash in your pocket after that. Okay? That's important for you to know. So if it doesn't cash flow, you're not going to buy it. But you don't know that until after you've gotten all the information. Okay? Next thing is return on investment. Everybody always asks, okay, what are you getting for your investments? What is your return on investment? What are you getting? Somebody says, oh, I get 12% on my money. Somebody says, oh, I get 2% on my money because I just keep it in the bank. Okay? Everybody kind of wants to know a return on their investment. So for what money you put into the investment, they want to know what is your return on that money. What are you getting for it? This is the way that you calculate that. And it'll just give it to you. If you plug it into those two things, it'll just give it to you. But it's just real easy to do that. Now, capitalization rate. This isn't real important if you're just doing single-family homes. If you're going to go into 10, 12 plexes, if you're going to get into into the more units, then you'll probably want to look a little bit at the capitalization rate, but that's something for another time. Go on from there. Okay, investments. to consider. If your property cash flows and in a way that fits your goals, then buy it. If it doesn't cash flow, don't buy it. Really simple. Don't get emotionally attached to something that's not going to bring in money for you. Okay, if it does, then go back again. If it doesn't, then just get out of the contract. If your goals are to recapture your initial repair cost of that property, then subtract them from the cash flow so that you'll see them in your cash on cash. If your goal is to recapture that, then just make sure you count that in the money that you put in. Okay, next one. Now, properties with no cash flow or that need a lot of repair or that in an area where the people that are going to rent are going to trash it, you maybe want to avoid. And another thing that people always get into is they want to get into something because it's going to appreciate. Oh, this property, I'm just going to get by because it's not going to cash flow for me right now, but it's really going to appreciate. Well, it may or it may not. The market may go up, the market may go down. Rents probably will continue to go up, hopefully everything will go up, but don't buy something just because of appreciation. Okay. That is my contact information, so if you have a question or you would like me to do a CMA for you, you can certainly do that. I'm well over my time here. If you've got questions, couple questions, anybody?
I have a comment.
Hi, Lenny.
Two comments. The first one is your information about contacting or helping out the appraiser is awesome, but people should know that the appraiser is not in any way obligated to take your information as solid. They just take it as, here's some suggestions that you may want to look at. If you don't, they have to use it, you try something else. The second thing is, when you're considering properties with no cash flow, you might want to consider minimum cash flow and the fact that they will be paying off their mortgage. So you might not make any money off at the end of the year, but in 5 years, you might see that it's worth it because you've got somebody else paying off the mortgage on the property.
Very good point. And Lonnie is a property manager, so we'll put that plug in right now. She does an awesome job. So if you've got properties and you would like to have somebody to manage them, Lonnie does a great job. Sean?
Just if you're talking age range, how much of the appraiser is taking into consideration? If I have a house that's built in 1920, and the only comps I can find are 50 years newer, are they more concerned with radius or exact model match type stuff?
I think they're more concerned about radius. I think that's what they're held to. I've had some that will age hasn't been that important. I don't know if 50 years would ring their bell, but
like 10 years or newer than 50 years.
And if you have a fully remodeled home, they're going to try to find remodeled homes to compare that to.
That's right.
Age is a little relevant, but not a ton.
age is not as important as radius. Okay, thank you.
All right, we're going to keep us moving here. If everybody can pass their ballot forms this way, really